So maps are a useful way to visualize your sci-fi or fantasy world. They're helpful for both you as the author and the reader, because after all, an epic universe can be difficult to navigate without one. So if you're an indie author without a lot of graphic design experience, you can use a map generator to make your own map. So I'm going to run you through 4 free fictional map generators available to sci-fi and fantasy authors on a budget. So let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at our first fantasy map generator, which is called Inkarnate, and it's marketed as being ideal for game masters, fantasy authors, and map enthusiasts. So let me just say right off the bat, I am saying that sci-fi authors can use these map generators, but they definitely are geared more towards fantasy. But anyway, Inkarnate has both a free and a paid version, and they're distinguished by basically what art elements you can use, how many maps you can make at a time, and the resolution at which you export these maps. But even without a subscription, just using the free version, Inkarnate lets you produce these beautiful, detailed maps that otherwise would be impossible for an indie author who doesn't really have any graphic design experience. So let's take a look at what kinds of things you can do with it. So when you create a world map in Inkarnate, you start entirely from scratch. It just has a blank ocean, and then you draw the land onto it. So you can draw these land masses as you see fit. So if you've ever made a doodle of what your fantasy world looks like the continents or islands or whatever, you can really just replicate that exactly and pretty easily by just drawing the land. So let me just give you an example of that. You use this mask tool, and let's make this bigger so you can see it. And you really just draw land onto it, and it'll add that little kind of glow or like lighter watercolor around it, so that way it looks like it has that shallow continental shelf around it, which I think looks pretty nice. But let's get rid of that blob. It's kind of ugly. You can undo anything that you do, so if you make a mistake, then you can just go back and change it. And then with the land that you can draw, you have different colors for it or different textures that you can use. So you could see I put kind of a desert over here, like a lighter green grassland, just kind of general green land over here. And you can even do like Arctic. So up here I have a lot of snow and ice. It's all tundra up there in the north, which would make sense. So after you've drawn the land for your map, you can start adding features. So here you're using this stamp tool to create the features on your map. So it's basically it's a stamp. You just click, click, click. You've just added mountains, or you could click and drag and add a whole range of mountains. So they have a bunch of different mountains that you can use. They have trees, hills, but let me show you the catalog. So you can open that up, and then here you go. So if you're using the free version like I am right now, then you really only have these core map elements that you can add. So you have different kinds of mountains, there's variations, there's different hills. You can add like sea serpents, ships, trees. You have a bunch of things you can do. So you can add these if you have the free version, but you can see, I'm just going to show you really quick. I know this video is geared towards people looking for free stuff, but this is the stuff that you could get if you had a paid subscription. So there's a lot more. But honestly, for most people, these basic elements are probably going to be enough. You can make a fantasy map that gets the job done using these elements. And then obviously you can add text to your map, and you can name everything. You can choose from a lot of different fonts here, so that's nice. You can really customize it, change the size of the font and the color and all of that. So you have a lot of options for labeling your map however you want to. So you can make a complete map using Inkarnate. There are going to be some other programs that I show you where you can make the map and all the land masses, but you can't actually add labels. So this one you could do it all. The thing that is most important for me to mention to you though about Inkarnate is that if you use the free version, you're only granted a personal license for your finished map. So that means you can't use it in your novel as an appendix or something like that, because you'll hypothetically be making money off of it. So you can post the map on your author site, your blog, or social media, but that's it. Like, you can't use it in your books. So if you want to include it in your novel without violating any copyright laws, you're going to need a commercial license, which is included with a paid subscription. The free version gets the job done. You can use that for all your promotional material, but for for the book itself. If you want to use it, you're going to need the paid subscription. But that's Inkarnate. I think you can make a nice map. I did this pretty fast. Like, I didn't put a ton of time into this. I just wanted to give you an example. It was easy to draw the land masses. Like, it was very quick. This was probably the easiest one for me to create land that looked exactly like the sketches I had done, because it was just easy to draw them. So let me show you some other map generators though, some of which are as easy, other ones are not as easy, but let's take a look. Okay, and let's take a look at our next fantasy map generator, which is Nortantis. So this is an open source map maker that's totally free. There is no paid version with extra features. So the thing that caught my eye about this one is that it was created by an author for authors. So clearly the designer is going to know what fantasy authors would need to make the perfect map for their novels. So I trust this one. And after having used it, I think that this is a really good option. Unlike the previous map generator I was just showing you, Nortantis is a desktop program. So this one's only available if you use Windows. You'll have to download it and install it to create your map. All of the other ones that I'm showing you today are all web-based, so you can just log in anywhere and do it online. So while Inkarnate lets you start from scratch, Nortantis is going to randomly generate your initial land masses, but you can then edit those as you see fit. So the map that I'm showing you right here, this didn't start out like this. It had totally random continents, but then I was able to go and edit the coastline so it matched what I had in my head. So this is pretty easy to do as well. Just like Inkarnate, you're pretty much just drawing land or water with a brush. So this, you could set the brush to be ocean, lakes, rivers, or land. I didn't really test out. Did I test out rivers? Yes, I did. You can see the little faint line there. But if you want to, let's say I want to change the coastline, I'm just drawing it here. It's a little slow to load, at least on my computer. You have to just draw the land, and since the brush has an irregular edge, it's really going to look like an actual coastline. It's not just going to be these smooth lines. So I think that aesthetically this is very pleasing, but you can draw the land, ocean, lakes, rivers. So then, just like Inkarnate, you can add various icons, kind of like stamps, to the map in order to have the various physical features that you want. So you can do mountains, hills, dunes, trees, and cities. So you can set the size of those, you have the brush size, and then they have variations on each. So for mountains, they have rounded mountains, sharp ones, and then like really jagged spires. So just like Inkarnate, this is pretty easy to do. You're just drawing the mountains onto the map. And again, you can set the size of them. So these are very small on this map. I did neglect to mention that you can change the land and the ocean color. These are the default colors that you use. So it's supposed to look kind of like an aged, antiquated map, which I like. But that's why I was saying before, these do work a little bit better for fantasy authors because the maps that they generate by default are going to look just better suited for fantasy. But anyway, after you add the physical features, you can finally add the text labels to your map. So you can put all the names. I didn't put very many because this was just moving so slow for me that I got tired of it. But you have, I put a name here for this region down here. So you can make those bigger. That was just the default size that it went to, but it's pretty illegible. That's small, so I would make it bigger, but I didn't spend a lot of time on this. So I like this one a lot. If you are a Windows user, then I think you should definitely give this a try. It produces maps that are really pretty, and because it's open source, you don't have to worry about any sort of licenses. You can use what you create for literally anything you want. If you want to put it in your book, awesome. If you want to use it on your website, just as awesome. You can use it for anything you want without having to worry about copyright. So that is definitely, I think, one of the biggest selling points about Nortantis. And again, totally free. There is no paid version, so you don't have to worry about the features being limited. Only downside is that it's a little slow depending on the computer you're using. But let's get to the next map generator. Okay, so let's take a look at the third map generator of today, which is Map Gen 4. So this one is web-based, just like Inkarnate, so you could access this anywhere. But the maps that you can produce can be used commercially. So that means you can include them in your novel if you want to. I'll admit it's not the most elegant of the map generators I'm mentioning, but it does get the job done, particularly if you're only looking to make a map for your own reference while you're writing your book. It looks okay. I just think it's better as a reference. But anyway, let me show you. So it starts with a randomly generated landmass. So it's just going to look like whatever Map Gen 4 decides to make it look like. But you can then tailor that to match what's described in your novels. So that's also easy to do. You really are just drawing out the coastline farther, and you can make it look however you want. So it's easy to customize the land masses like that and change the coastlines. And you have different elevations. So obviously as the ocean and just like lakes and stuff, but you have valleys and you have mountains. So the thing that's interesting about this one that sets it apart is that it is geologically accurate. So it really takes into account the elevation of the terrain and the various features of the terrain to change things about the weather, the precipitation, and the various biomes that appear. So like if you include mountains and valleys, it's going to affect the precipitation levels of the surrounding landscape, just like mountains and valleys do in real life. And then, based on the elevation, it's going to alter the course of rivers. It's interesting. I've just never seen this before. So you end up with realistic biomes and erosion patterns. So anyone who's into geology is really going to like that. But you can't, so far as I can tell, create a fully fictional climate that doesn't adhere to natural laws. So it's not necessarily going to match what you described in your novel. Like you might say in your novel that there's a jungle right next to these mountains, but in real life, maybe the mountains would have caused the temperature to plummet on one side, or it would have been really dry on one side. So it wouldn't actually result in a rainforest on one side. But in your novel, you decided that that's what you were going to write. So if it's not accurate, if the weather patterns don't really match reality, then Map Gen 4 probably is not going to create something that matches what you wanted, because unlike the others, you can't, so far as I can tell, can't draw forests. Like you can't draw desert. Like this is just going to simulate the actual climate based on the terrain that you put. But you can make a lot of adjustments to the coastlines. You can set kind of how jagged they are, the height of the hills, how jagged the mountains are, and their sharpness, and the depth of the oceans. You can manually alter the raininess of the whole continent, so you'll see it dries up. Like it just turned totally dry. And if I do it really, really high raininess, it's gonna, turn very, very green. You can change the levels of evaporation. That just kind of makes it a little bit drier in certain areas. And you can change the angle of the wind. So that is also going to affect the dryness of the terrain. You can alter the rivers, like the flow of them, the width of them. See, they just made it a lot bigger. These are a lot narrower. And then since this is saying that this is making the map in full 3D, you can change the angle of everything, like the light, so it looks different. So that's pretty cool. And you can tilt it so you see the elevation. So that's also cool. And yeah, so these are the things that you can do with Map Gen 4. One thing that you're going to notice pretty obvious is that you cannot add labels, so far as I can tell. I played around with this for a while. Maybe you can, and it's something really obvious that's just escaping me, but I don't see it. So I don't think you can do that. I can just change the landscape and that's it. So if you want to create your map with this and you want to use it for something, because this is free for commercial use, you can use it for anything you want. You're going to have to edit this elsewhere. You're not going to be able to do everything in Map Gen 4 because you can't add labels. So you'll have to add labels to your map using some other editor, whether it's like Canva or Photoshop or something else. So that's Map Gen 4. Looks cool. I think that it would be really useful, as I was saying before, for reference, especially if you're still developing your fantasy world and you don't have a very clear idea yet of the climate or the various biomes that are there, and you're not married to any particular image of that in your head, then this is going to really simulate a realistic landscape for you. So I think this could give you a lot of ideas if you're still in the planning stages. But let's move on to the last one that I'm going to show you for today. Okay, and then this is the last one I'm going to show you for today. This is called Azgaar's Fantasy Map Generator. So this is another web-based tool that's free to use. There is no paid version. And because it's open source, your finished maps are going to be available for both personal and commercial use. So feel free to use it and add it to your novel. So you're going to start with randomly generated continents that clearly are not going to match the coastlines of your book, but you can manually edit them as needed. So this is what came up. Not the names, I changed the names, but the land masses are what came up randomly when I logged into this. You can change them by moving individual points in the coastline, but let me tell you, it's a pain in the ass. It's not easy. So you'd have to spend a lot of time changing the coastlines to match what you had doodled on a napkin or in a notebook. So just like Map Gen 4, I think this is going to be better if you don't already have an image in your head of what the land land masses are going to look like, because you can change them to match what's in your head, but I think it's just going to take so much time that it's not worth it. So if you don't already have a map in mind, then this is going to be great for you, because there's a lot of cool things you can do. It's just not easy to make it match something that you've already created. So let me show you some of the features that are available. So it wasn't easy for me to figure out how to use this at first. I didn't think it was super obvious, but it starts you with all of these different map layers. So these are like variations on the map. So this is the political map. It's showing the different, or maybe this isn't, I don't know which map this is, but this is, okay, this is the political map. So this is basically showing countries or kingdoms. You can edit those as you see fit, and the names and the spread of them. They also have cultural maps. So even if various cultures kind of transcend national borders and they maybe are present in 2 or more countries, you can show the way that these cultures are distributed. You can also have religions, you can have provinces, the physical map that shows the, say, you can see the elevation and everything. You can set it to have temperature, precipitation. So this is similar to Map Gen 4 in that it's going to simulate a fairly accurate biome and environment and climate. So I think this looks a lot more sophisticated than Map Gen 4 does, but you can do kind of the same thing. So that's why I'm saying, if you don't already have something in your head, you haven't already planned out, oh, this is where this forest is, this is where this jungle is, this is where these mountains are, then this is going to be great for you, because it's going to really inspire you to have a realistic landscape if you haven't already planned one out that's purely fictional. So you can, I have to figure out how to get back to it because it wasn't obvious. I kind of just randomly stumbled upon this, but oh, okay, here it is. You can configure all of these different elements of it. So you have the provinces, states, you can change the name, you can change the form of it, like if it's an empire, theocracy, or whatever. I guess that's going to change the colors and such, but you can put where the capital is and the name of it. You can set which culture is the primary culture and the populations and stuff. So this is cool that you can do all of that. And then you have all of these different layers for your map. So you can always show different overlays, like if you want to see this are the cultures, this is the religions and such. But another thing you can do, let me go back to just kind of the default map with the kingdoms. Okay, you can change the style of the map, so it's not always going to just be in these colors. You can change it to be like you have like a cyberpunk one. See, this is one that I think sci-fi authors are going to be able to use. This looks way more sci-fi than the other ones do. Actually, I typed cyberpunk, but it put night on. Okay, what does cyberpunk? Okay, see, even more sci-fi-esque. So that's pretty cool. I would probably use this for something, actually. But you can change the appearance of the map, so you have like ancient looking. It's cool. I don't like the font, but I like the rest of the map. But these are the different things you can do with Azgaar's fantasy map generator. This is a cool one. It is a lot more complicated than the others, and I like that. You can really customize all the different elements of it. The only shortcoming is that it is not going to be easy for you to match coastlines of something that you have already drawn out on paper. So that's the one thing I'll say. There maybe is an easier way to do it. I just am not aware of it. So who knows? Try it out for yourself and see what you think of it. I just think that the maps that you can produce with it look really nice. And they're very, very complex and detailed. So I still really like this. Anyway, that is Azgaar's Fantasy Map Generator, the fourth one that we're looking at today. And hopefully you found one of these appealing and you might be willing to try it out. Okay, so just to wrap up for today, I'm going to admit again that these map generators are geared towards the fantasy genre, but I think sci-fi authors are going to be able to make useful maps as well, depending on your story. Like if you're writing an entirely spacefaring sort of story where you don't really need to map out individual cities or continents or anything like that, probably won't use these. But if you are writing one that is a little bit smaller scale, like it's not a huge space opera, then you might be able to find a use for one of these map generators. But whether you're writing fantasy or sci-fi, a map can be a great way to enhance your fictional world. So you can use a map as a way to stay organized while writing. You can use a map to help your readers stay oriented as they navigate your novel's complex and fascinating world. You can include it as an appendix in your book or bonus content on your website. So there's a lot of ways you can use these. And no matter how you decide to use it, a map's going to be more than just a picture. It's a guide to an epic universe that's going to capture the imagination of sci-fi and fantasy readers alike. So if you've ever tried any of these, let me know which one you liked the most. And if you haven't tried it and you decide to try it after watching this video, let me know which one you thought was most suitable for your project. Like which one had the most features that were useful to you and which one produced the map that you liked the most. So just let me know and put a comment below. And if you found this interesting or helpful, please like and subscribe, follow me on social media. And as always, thank you for watching. God bless.